Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 4 of the Ask Joaquin Anything Show. I am your host, Joaquin Revello, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at how to deal with annoying teammates and if all subjects are equal in the Scholars Bowl. As always, if you found this video helpful, give it a big thumbs up in the description down below and share it with your friends. A fun fact about the number 4 is that number 4 is the smallest composite number. As you might know from mathematics, 1, 2, and 3 are all primes, but number 4 is the first of composite numbers. Just a great question, one that I've actually been wondering about and trying to figure out myself for the past 3 years. Based on all the questions that I've gotten, I can almost safely say that the majority of the questions attempt the best they can in one way or another to revolve around the central theme. I'd say in all the bowls that I've been in some bowls there's actually very little history, and then in the next there's a lot, and some there's a lot of special area, and then the next there's a lot. It's really hard to tell because as far as I know, the Scholars Cup makes multiple bowls for all the regional rounds, and then makes one bowl for each global round, and then one for TOC. And they vary the questions that they put. They try to add as balanced as they can, but it doesn't always end up being that way. From past experiences, I can relate that the 2017 bowl specifically, that had a lot of science for some reason. Didn't have as much history. I mean, I can't concretely remember, but I don't remember there being that much history. I just remember being science. Probably like 45% was science. It really varies from bowl to bowl, but my biggest tip here is just study the entire thing. You never know what type of question you will get. There's no point in trying to allocate more time in one subject when in reality all your questions might be to the subject you didn't study. So go on the safe side, study all the subjects, and you'll be fine, and you won't have to worry about which subjects are in the Scholars Bowl. But I can say for sure that in every bowl they will not be 20% equal. Every subject won't have 20%. There won't be 20% history, there won't be 20% socials. There's always a slight imbalance. So study all the curriculum and you should be fine. Yes, the challenge. One of my favorite parts of the WC curriculum because it's one of the easiest parts to get points off. Unlike debate and writing, which is mainly subjective, the challenge can be done with the right studying technique. So how do you do it? I would strongly suggest you check out the video I made with Ave and Fada. You can check it out right here, I believe. Hopefully something should pop up. But basically, the main strategy to studying for the challenge is to know the majority of the details around both the terms, the special case studies at the end, as well as the general theme and the ideas and the people associated with the ideas itself. This means knowing the in and outs of all the ideas, doing Wikipedia dives. Like honestly, one of the best strategies to studying for the Scholars Cup, believe it or not, is to just go in Wikipedia rabbit holes. You just read a little bit, you take notes, you find what's interesting, you dig stuff out, and you start finding very interesting connections between a lot of the terms inside of this Scholars Cup curriculum. And from this detail, you have to pull out all the names, all the important dates, all the important aspects of that term. I'd strongly suggest you put that into a Quizlet, which I conveniently have already done in the Quizlet down below. And then with that, you keep studying that Quizlet over and 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 over.
A lot of boring math later.
So how the hell do you get the time to study for the Quizlet? Simple. It's a productivity principle, which I call dead time, which is basically time that you're spending where you're not doing anything. This can include time when you're on the bus, which for many people is spent either checking Instagram or trying to get your brother off your lap because he has no place else to sit on the bus. But in that time, you could just be swiping through Quizlet, just going through questions. And think about it, if you spend 15 minutes a day studying Quizlet, in 2 months you'll have 750 minutes of time spent studying in just 2 months in the time you're already going to be spending. What's interesting about that is that the time you spend from going to your house to school on the bus or in the car, depending how you get to school, that time is already going to be spent. So why don't you spend it memorizing things you've already researched in your study time before? Okay, so going in depth and understanding all that is how you're going to be able to tackle the tough challenge questions. So definitely check out the video with Aiden Fade Out. I'm going to link it in the description down below to give you some more in-depth study strategies around that. Okay, I'm planning on making a more in-depth video on this exact topic sometime in the future, but just a quick rundown right now. Number one is studying your dead time, which I just talked about. Number two is meet with your teammates to go through practice debates and practice writing. Specifically with your teammates, I'd strongly suggest you do practice debates, because you can't really do that alone unless you want to, but it's more collaborative and it'll prepare you more for the WC if you do it together. But if you can't do that, then I'd strongly suggest you write an essay every 2 to 3 days on a WC prompt. Remember again that the WC prompts change. They're not really essay focused this year, they're more creative focused. So you can make topics around that just simply by looking through the curriculum. And another habit I'd strongly suggest you do is, instead of listening to whatever music you normally listen to entertain yourself, whether that's if Drake made a new album, or I really don't know, but if someone just listen to the WC music in your free time, okay? I know Drake, or what's that guy? I can't even remember. I know Chance the Rapper just dropped his new album. I think I'm a few late for this, like 2 months ago now. Don't listen to that in your free time. Instead, listen to Scholars Cup. I mean, you don't have to listen to the Scholars Cup music, but if you want to get a good score and possibly win the competition, I strongly suggest you do that instead of listening to Chance the Rapper. And finally, another few basic habits are associated to productivity. If you can simply jack up your productivity, maybe like 2-fold, you'll get twice as much studying in the same amount of time that you would. A few of these habits include eating right food that gives you energy, getting a lot of sleep, going on exercise, and just maintaining focused intervals of work, of mainly 25 minutes of interval work throughout the day. That way you can sustain your focus and get more done. Again, I'm making a video on this sometime in the future, going more in depth into all of these aspects. So stay tuned for that. So there's a few strategies for that. The first, and I'm gonna say this again, practice in your dead time. That consistency of practicing every single day is ultimately what leads you to getting all the terms stuck inside your head. I'd also suggest you, if you possibly can, read about the terms right before you go to bed, because that period before you go to bed is actually the period of time during the day where you remember the most stuff. But it's really just consistency. And with that consistency is finding what type of method works well for you when it comes to memorizing. And on top of that, if you possibly can, try to implement as many emotions to that specific term or that specific subject that you're trying to memorize. Just implement all the possible emotions you can. For example, if you can, try to make the subject funny, try to make it somehow amusing, try to add more senses, touch, taste, see, I don't know, go experience it for yourself. There's tons of strategies to try to memorize it faster, but it really just comes down to doing them on a consistent basis. I mean, if you just do your Quizlet once, it's no good. You have to keep doing it every day to build that discipline, and then from that you'll be able to memorize absolutely anything very quickly. Another strategy, as a quick side note, that I like to use that works very well for me, especially when memorizing long speeches that I have to deliver, it's called the memory palace technique. You might have heard me talk about this in a previous video. Okay, so when it comes to memorizing terms, you should definitely use the memory palace approach. But yeah, basically the memory palace, you affiliate specific terms to parts of your house, to cabinets, to doors, to computers, to anything in your house that's very vivid. That way you attach multiple senses to that term, and when you go back through your memory palace, you remember it much easier. Again, it takes some learning to actually get used to, but once you get it nailed down, it works really well for me. And if it works for you, you should definitely keep trying it with all the terms that you have to memorize. Okay, so one of the best advices I can give to to solve this teammate issue is to think a lot. And by a lot, I mean just think a lot about who your teammate is before you go to the WSC event itself. This means, and most importantly, means analyzing their work habits, what type of study strategies they have, what type of person overall they are. You can find a video I made on teammates choosing right here. With that in mind, the best way to deal with these teammates problems, these unstable and just straight up annoying teammates that I've also had to deal with in the past, the best way to just deal with this is to avoid it in the first place. So if you can go the extra mile at the beginning of your journey to map out exactly who you're going to be spending your time with, who you work well with, and figuring out all the specifics with that, you're going to be in a much better spot overall. But if your teammate is randomly chosen by your coach, there's not much you can do about setting yourself up for success, but there are a few strategies you can implement to helping your teammates become less unstable. And actually, if your teammate is on the verge of quitting, you might as well just let them quit and find a better, more motivated teammate and more motivated solo, because that's just going to save you a bunch of time going for TOC and maybe the global rounds. Okay, so the best advice I can give for those who have unstable teammates, those who procrastinate, the teammates that procrastinate, the teammates that don't listen to you, the main reason why they procrastinate in the first place is either one of two things. Number one, they have bad study habits, which is your fault for choosing them because you didn't realize that at first. Or number two, you just don't tolerate them, which means that if someone's procrastinating on you and doesn't really care about your opinion, it means that you haven't set a clear boundary on what type of teammate they should be. If you haven't set a clear boundary, the teammate doesn't understand what you or you don't tolerate, so they end up doing random stuff, which causes them to procrastinate, which causes them to become unstable and just not do work overall. Therefore, my tip for those in that situation is to go up to your teammate and make it very, very, very clear what you tolerate and what you don't. For example, if you don't tolerate procrastination, then make it clear that the next time they procrastinate, there will be a severe punishment. And to go a step further, I'd strongly suggest consulting your coach on this, because they can just add an extra layer of toleration. That way they do get on their task and they do start doing work. And if they for some reason break the rules, be harsh on them, give them that punishment, make it clear that you might, if, for example, clear punishment, if they do for some reason procrastinate and they don't listen to what you said before, the boundaries you tolerated, what you could do is you can make it very clear that you're not going to go to WC in general. And that might actually be a good thing for you, because if they don't want to go, then there's no point in trying to motivate them in the first place to go to a competition that they're not going to want to go. Because they don't want to go, they're just going to waste their time not studying at all. So if that ends up happening and they just ditch you, it's actually better for you, because then you can find a more motivated solo teammate in the globals or the TOC. Because as a leader, you have to do two things. Number one, lead by example, putting in the hard work, and then people follow you. And number two, make it very clear what you want out of the people, and make it very clear what will happen if they don't do that. So make those things extremely vivid, make them very clear to your teammate, and they are more likely to become less unstable and hopefully work with you, and you can start moving forward to winning the competition. And when it comes to working together, just build that friendship, because in all teammates, one of the core things that keep teams together is trust, is that bond. And by building up trust, by having activities with them that might not be Scholars Cup related, you build up that connection, which can be very important to succeeding and doing well in the Scholars Cup. So I hope you found this video helpful. This is episode number 4 of the Ask Joaquin Anything Show. As always, leave your comments in the description down below and all your questions there. If you found this video helpful, please leave a big thumbs up and share it with your team. And again, I'm so happy that J4 hasn't talked to me today, and he will not talk to me for the rest of the day, because he's just an angel.
You thank your chair today.
Is this song gonna be on iTunes or something? Because if they really do end up putting it on iTunes, why don't they just release the Beijing showcase video already? As always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, stay productive. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.